Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Temple City Council for Thursday, November 1st, 2018. Please rise as Pastor Warren Gray with the Vine Church leads us in the invocation, followed by our pledge led by Mark Baker from the Planning Department.
Pray. Gracious and loving God, I thank you tonight for your care and compassion for us. We thank you also for all those in civic leadership and service who have given of themselves to serve and provide for our community and our city. We thank you for the council members and other officials for the time and devotion and care that they give to our city. I pray tonight, God, that you would fill their conversation, their decisions with wisdom, with love, and with compassion for all the residents of our city. God, we pray that our community will be a place where the marginalized find place and inclusion and purpose, where the voiceless are given voice, where those who cannot defend themselves are provided with opportunities for others to stand up for them. Thank you, God, for this community that you have blessed us with, and for this country in which we live. We pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both very much. Item 2 is public comment section. Citizens who desire to address the council on any matter may sign up to do so prior to this meeting. Public comments will be received during this portion of the meeting. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and no discussion or final action will be taken by the City Council. We have one person that signed up, Mr. Zeppner.
Good evening, Council. I'm here tonight to say thank you for the Ferguson Park project y'all had going on last Saturday. It was good to see some of the community coming out and voicing their opinions, since a lot of people are afraid to come up here and speak on their behalf of what the community needs. It looked like it was a pretty good outcome. I'd like to thank some of the staff city staff that was there that's working on the project. I think it was a real good thing y'all did. Been years I've been coming up here, and I'm glad to see something finally like that to take place in my part of the community. And I'd like to see if the council could do that in other parts of the community too, later on next year or early spring at some of these other parks in their community. I guess there's a few things that were left out on the picture boards and stuff. I probably will speak out later on. But for now, I'd like to say thank y'all for doing that. And also, I'd like to thank the city for putting out the hay bales and little scarecrows or whatever they are for, I guess, 4 years or so. I've been noticing that every fall. It gives us that autumn seasonal feel. And I really think that does the community and downtown a really good look. Besides, with everything that's going on with the reconstruction and revising up the old buildings and stuff, I think y'all doing a good job with the city staff and the entities of the city of Temple. I just want to say thank y'all for that.
Thank you, Mr. Zeppner. That event at the park was very nice, very well received, lots of participation.
I missed you out there.
Because you weren't there early enough.
I get up too early.
Okay, item 3 is a consent agenda. All items listed under this section are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted in one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member, and it will be considered separately. Council, this is item 3A through 3Q. Anything to be removed for further discussion? There being no items requested to be removed, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which is items 3A through 3Q.
Make a motion for approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long. Councilmember Walker.
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye. Item 4 is the regular agenda. To consider adopting an ordinance amending ordinance number 2005-4049 to approve an amended site plan covering approximately 6.809 acres out of 55.39 acres located in the Maximo Marino Survey, abstract number 14, Bell County, Texas, located at the northeast corner of Country View Lane and Country Lane Drive. Ms. Barrett? No, Ms. Barrett. Do we need a presentation?
It's up to you. I'm Miss Barrett this evening.
Okay, good. So we've seen this presentation before?
You have.
Right.
And you haven't seen it by me, but I'm sure it's a lot better by her, so.
Okay, no comment on that. Okay,
Mayor,
Counsel-
we're happy to do the presentation, but as I mentioned in work session, this is second reading and primarily on the regular agenda for voting purposes.
Sure, sure. Counsel, do you need a presentation, or are we okay? Okay. All right, very good. Then, if there are no further comments, then I'll entertain a motion on item number 4.
Motion to approve is presented by
Seconded.
Ms. Barrett in the past.
Okay.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Long.
Aye.
Councilmember Walker.
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales.
Abstain.
Mayor Davis.
Aye. Item 5 is to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a 5-year franchise with American Medical Response, Inc., to provide non-emergency ambulance services, non-emergency ambulance transfer services within the city. Ms. Landeros.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is another request for a franchise to operate for non-emergency medical services in the city from American Medical Response. AMR, the name is probably familiar to you all. They are the city's contracted EMS provider, so emergency services provider. If you'll recall, the city only contracts with one EMS provider for those services in the city. So AMR has now requested that you all grant it a franchise to operate within the city and provide non-emergency services. If AMR is granted the franchise, it would run its non-emergency transfer services separately from the EMS services that it currently provides. I think you've all probably seen the ambulances that it runs within the city for EMS. They're branded Temple EMS. For the non-emergency transfer services, they would not be branded that way. They would be separate ambulances. So as always, a reminder that these franchises are governed by Chapter 5 of our code. Non-emergency ambulance transfer service is defined as the transport of patients for non-emergency, previously scheduled medical treatment from a point that originates in the city and terminates in the city. And to operate this type of service, a franchise agreement is required. Council can issue that franchise if it determines that the franchise serves the public interest. In making that determination, you all can consider the distance from the applicant's permanent address to hospitals and other medical facilities in town, the number of ambulances that will be utilized, and any evidence of the applicant's previous performance. For AMR, they have provided the following information. Its permanent location is on North 3rd Street. They actually lease a city facility close to Central Fire Station. They will operate 3 ambulances for the non-emergency services, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The city's experience with AMR on the EMS side for the past several months has been positive. And so they also have to provide evidence that no official of the company has been convicted of a felony or a misdemeanor involving moral turpitude in the last 10 years. They have to provide proof of insurance, the description and number, make, and model of the ambulances, and the names of all persons with financial interest in the company, which they have provided that information to city staff. And so staff is recommending approval of the franchise request for AMR. It would be a 5-year franchise, which is standard for our non-emergency transfer services franchises. and happy to answer any questions. Chief Randalls is here too, who has direct contact with AMR pretty frequently, so he can answer questions as well.
So if approved, how many non-emergency transfer services would there be?
We would have AMR, Acadian, and Scott and White, so 3. And we have had 3 before, and I think that's the most that we've ever
Had
had.
one drop out.
We did in the last year, I believe at some time. Now their name escapes me.
Actually, it was Maristat and Capital, and they were both bought by.
Acadian. So Acadian acquired those.
So at one point years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, there was concern about the number of transfers that were needed, so the number of transfer ambulances that were needed. And I believe we had 3, and a 4th came on, requested a franchise, and didn't get it
Right.
because it was thought that maybe that was maybe oversaturation of the market.
I believe there were some other issues behind that denial as well. And I think, well, no. I think we did talk about it in a meeting, and now I remember the discussion slightly, but not the whole context of it. But I don't think the number was the sole reason for not allowing it.
That makes sense. I just remember that being a big deal, that
Yes.
we had someone request and then that was denied because of, just the market. So that's not a consideration. I mean, we're okay with,
I don't know if Chief has thoughts.
and ultimately, I realize it's up to the business owner to,
Exactly. That's
No.
what we have discussed as well, to generate business.
So we don't monitor the actual number of non-emergency transports that go on in the city. My view and what my take is of council view in past is it's kind of like a restaurant or any other service that's provided to the city. We let those folks come in and then basically, differentiate themselves from others, and those that are successful will survive, and those that don't, won't. And that's kind of what we've seen with the other companies. They just, really weren't providing the service that the facilities needed, and so they got to where they just couldn't sustain themselves here and either got bought out or just left, so.
and it's not on the calls aren't made on a round-robin basis. If a facility likes a certain service, then they can call that service every time.
That's absolutely right. It's much like I said, a restaurant or something else.
Right.
If you like a particular place, you're going to frequent that more often. If you don't, then you won't.
And
Good.
some entities, like, I think the VA, for example, has a contract with one of the non-emergency medical, so I'm sure there's nursing facilities that have that. So, sometimes businesses enter into contractual relationships with companies that have a franchise, and they're not required to do that, but sometimes they have contracts with them.
Yeah, that's correct. And one of the things that I've seen is that, we have a maximum dollar amount that you can charge for service in town. There is no minimum. So, if one of the companies wants to contract at a lower rate than what our maximum is, then they are free to do that in order to, again, obtain more business share.
Sure, very good.
Yep.
From my standpoint, Mayor, with them being our emergency provider, there are some times where the transfer is in a little bit of a gray area. And so from my standpoint, it would be helpful if they had a non-emergency transfer or franchise as well, so that we're just covered either way.
Is the equipment on board, the emergency and non-emergency vehicles, different?
It's virtually the same. What you'll see is probably some different styles of trucks, and I saw some of that. I'm sure that those trucks will transfer in and out. Typically, the ones that are used on non-emergencies are a little older units, and so they get traded in and out more often. But, the state of Texas issues a minimum equipment standard to be considered an ambulance, and so that would have to be maintained, obviously, to keep their state license, which is what they're required to do. And we don't have anything different than what the state of Texas requires. So just to get an ambulance license for that vehicle, they would have to, to meet that standard.
And then one other point of consideration to keep in mind is that with the emergency contract we have with AMR, we have performance standards in that contract and minimum number of ambulances in that contract. So by them doing non-emergency work, they cannot take away the emergency reliability because we have that contractually obligated, whereas we didn't have that in our last contract.
They have to have more ambulances.
That's correct. So they'll maintain our minimum of 5 here in the city for emergencies, and they will stay the Temple EMS branded ambulances. And then, as Ms. Landeros said, the other ambulances will be just tagged as AMR, and so they'll be easily identifiable between the two.
Okay.
And I did just want to correct one thing prior that I said. I said that previously Capital had a non-emergency franchise. They were the ones that were actually rejected a few years ago. They were doing transfers from the VA. I think they had a VA contract for a little bit. And there were a couple of other issues with them. I think it came up in the background check and stuff. I don't recall what it is just offhand, but
Okay.
I do believe that there was obviously some discussion about market share, but there was also some discussion amongst staff about some of the other materials, and so I believe that's why they were rejected that time.
Okay, very good. Thank y'all. Council, any questions on that?
Chief and Ms. Landeros, it sounds like there's absolutely no downside to this.
Not from the city's perspective, no, ma'am.
Great. No.
Okay, at this time, this item is subject to a public hearing. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Rusty Wood. I'm the operations manager for Acadian Ambulance, and I am happy to be one of the current non-emergency franchise holder in the city. My only point tonight would be has there been truly a need assessment done in the city? I don't believe that there has been, and I don't believe there is a need for a third franchise holder. I get that there is an upside for the city to have them as a non-emergency franchise holder. They're a great service, and they do a great job, and I would just ask that you can ask for a needs assessment before we grant this. Thank you for your time.
Could I just ask a question or make a statement? Again, is it the city's responsibility to do a needs assessment for a franchise? It's not costing us, is it?
It's not, and that was part of the conversation earlier, was that this is just competition.
It's open market competition. Okay. Thank you.
Council, anything else? Okay, at this time, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion on item 5.
I'll make a motion to approve item 5 as read.
Second.
Have a motion and second, Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Davis?
Aye. Item 6 is to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning of 1.4 plus or minus acres from agriculture zoning district to planned development neighborhood services zoning district with a development site plan for offices and enclosed storage for an events rental business addressed as 5285 South 31st Street. Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Again, this is a rezoning for 1.4 acres from agricultural to planned development neighborhood service. And the use is most, as defined in our development code, is most closely related to a retail service use that is not otherwise listed. Now, with the mixture of uses in the area, this request does lend itself to a PD concept. The other aspect to this request is the development site plan, which is for the relocation of the Celebrations Event Rental and Design Shop, which is currently located in the Pecan Plaza. Now, at this new location on South 31st Street, no events would be held at the new location and would be strictly for the offices, storage, and showroom for the business. The site plan went before the Design Review Committee and was reviewed on September 17th, and public review of this plan development site plan is required. And again, as the map shows, it's right on the bend of South 31st and is indicated by the hatched area. Now, as a planned development, it is a flexible overlay zoning district and does provide for the development site plan approval. And again, with the plan development, there's a base zoning of the neighborhood service, which does allow most retail uses. There's also the development site plan that's submitted through the rezoning process, and the site plan is binding, subject to compliance to conditions of approval. Also, the code provides for 10 criteria, which were provided in your staff report through a separate table and discussion, as well as the discussion for the compliance aspect. In terms of the zoning map, again, the base zoning is neighborhood service. It's intended for retail and service uses. This property fronts along a major arterial, and the neighborhood service supports the adjacent residential development. It's also adjacent to the Tuscan Square, which has an office zoning. And the PD with the base NS zoning does address the uniqueness of the property and the uses, and there are no use restrictions to the base neighborhood service that's being proposed. Future land use map designation is auto urban commercial, and this is identified for commercial uses, but it does support the neighborhood service zoning. So both water and sewer are available to supply the property. And just some photographs of the location as well as the surrounding area. Again, the photographs primarily on the left are of the site with a proposed building pad that will be developed on the site, and the photographs on the right are the existing buildings. The property had previously been used as a residential use. No residents will be part of this request, and the existing buildings, the garage, and the existing residential building will be used for storage. So just a photograph to the north, the existing Waterford Park subdivision. To the west is the Tuscan Square Commercial Park, and to the south is the Bostic and Taylor subdivision. And this is actually looking from the backyard of the subject property. There's an existing solid fence and the rooftops of the residential use on the other side. And so to the east of the property, primarily with the existing driveway, which will be the main access point from South 31st to the new building. But to the east is an existing single-family residence. And I do want to point out that the existing chain link fence, which is on the subject property, will be replaced with a solid fence. So in terms of development standards, just a comparison between the existing agricultural for a non-residential use and the proposed neighborhood service. The main takeaway would be that the building height under the neighborhood service would be limited to 2.5 stories. And so just a slide showing the site plan. Again, this is proposed within a recorded lot within the Celebration Station final plat, which was recently recorded. This is a new building footprint of approximately 30 by 56 feet and provides for about 1,680 square feet of floor under roof. The building itself will be set back approximately 31 feet, and again, the building floor plan will be for a showroom, administrative offices, and additional storage for the business. Additionally, landscaping, the Unified Development Code provides for a minimum of 5%. The development plan does provide for 7.75%, so there's enhanced landscaping. And the calculation was made based on the site boundary of the new development as opposed to the entire 1.4 acres. So in terms of the landscaping, both proposed and existing, there is a landscape area, about a 23-foot wide landscape area that will be provided with proposed plants. In addition, proposal for foundation plantings and the existing preservation of a number of trees that I have listed here as well. Minor relocations of the shrubs and the plants may be necessary, but all the plants that are proposed are acceptable within the guidelines of the code. So in terms of buffering and screening, I've already pointed out a number of those items, but I'll point out the 4 that stand out the most. Item number 1 is the existing solid 6-foot-high fence to the rear of the property that will meet the buffering and screening requirements between the uses. Number 2 is a 120-foot section of a proposed 8-foot solid fence. That was the chain link fence that I referenced earlier. That'll be set back approximately 58 feet from the right-of-way, and there'll be The setback is to accommodate line of sight for vehicles that are leaving the property and entering onto South 31st. There's also bullet statement or bullet item number 3, which is the preservation of existing landscaping and trees throughout the site. And item number 4 is new landscaping along the street frontage, along with foundation plantings are being proposed. And those are kind of itemized in the previous slide. So the floor plan, again, as I mentioned earlier, would be for the accommodation of administrative offices, storage room, as well as an ADA-compliant bathroom. So the building elevations and materials, this is a representation of the north-facing building elevation that would be seen from South 31st. It would replicate the Tuscan Square finishes that would be to the west. Maximum building height of 16 feet, and the proposal does exceed the masonry requirements. So as part of the rezoning process, property owners within 200 feet were noticed. Staff has not received any notices in opposition or in agreement to the proposal. So in terms of the criteria that staff uses to evaluate the request, the plan development criteria, the future land use map, compatibility with surrounding uses and zoning, the availability of public facilities, and the thoroughfare plan, the request is all in compliance with those criteria. So staff recommends approval of the request for rezoning from agricultural to planned development neighborhood service, subject to 4 conditions. Condition number 1, that no events would be occur at any time on the subject property. Condition number 2, minimum of 7 parking spaces. Condition number 3, development within the substantial compliance to the site plan that was attached to your staff report as Exhibit A. And that condition number 4, the Director of Planning would have authorization to approve minor changes to the development site plan. And at their October 1st, 2018 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission did vote 7-0 to recommend approval per staff's recommendation. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available, and the applicant is also available.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Council, any questions on this?
Yes, I do. Mark, when I drove down there and looked around, I was not quite positive, but the existing house is going to be behind the new structure?
That is correct.
Great, that's what I thought. And secondly, you know, this is the district that I represent. In a year and a half of representing this district, it is the first item you've brought to council that I haven't received a single negative call on. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you for the setback on the fence, because the visibility there on the curve is really difficult. That's a major issue on that curve, so that's well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank the owners if they're here.
Yes, the property's owners are here and
Great.
available.
Well designed in that sense. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to point out publicly that the applicants have worked very closely with us and have been very accommodating to our
I
needs.
appreciate that, and I appreciate no negative phone calls. Thanks.
Welcome.
Very good. Anybody else? All right, this item is also subject to a public hearing. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Okay, there being no comments, then I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion on item 6.
I'll make a motion to approve item 6 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Davis?
Aye. Item 7 is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing a professional services agreement with RJN Group of Dallas for a citywide system evaluation and capacity assurance plan and assessment of Friars Creek wastewater basin in an amount not to exceed $1,616,031, as well as declare an official intent to reimburse the expenditures with the issuance of a 2019 utility revenue bond. Ms. Taralva.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to present the item. Next slide. So at the last council workshop, we had a fairly in-depth conversation about our wastewater collection system. We have just a few slides tonight to summarize The main points as they relate to the agenda item that's under consideration this evening. The primary purpose of our collection system is to collect the wastewater from all of our customers, send it down the system through a series of pipes and manholes into a central wastewater plant where it's then treated or reused. The City of Temple's collection system is over 2 million linear feet long, which is over 400 miles, and it is an aging system that requires assessment and repair. The primary aspects of a wastewater collection system are really critical to really everything the city does, safeguarding the public health, protecting our drinking water supplies, preserving our environment, and sustaining our economy. We do that in partnership with a lot of different entities, including our state and federal agencies. What's shown on the map is an overall look at our entire collection system. What's shown in red, the boundaries, we actually have 2 primary basins that drain our wastewater. The easternmost basin drains to the Dosher Farm wastewater treatment facility, which is shown with the green star off to the right. To the south, the secondary basin is our Temple Belton wastewater basin, which is primarily served by the Temple Belton wastewater plant located on Highway 93. The star that's noted kind of toward the bottom right in red is an indication that signifies Friars Creek Basin, which is a portion of the council agenda item. Friars Creek Subbasin is one of 4 basins that drains in the Temple Belton plant. You can see on the Dosher Farm basin side, there are 2 subbasins that drain into Dosher Farm. So as a municipal utility provider, we are responsible to maintain and operate our collection system in accordance with state and federal requirements. To do that, we plan and implement capital projects to address issues and to expand services. And also, we respond appropriately to regulatory agencies to achieve that long-term compliance goals and expectations. On the top right, you can see graphically that distinction again between the 2 primary basins within the City of Temple. There's a lot of words on that slide. So, kind of to summarize, the item that's in front of you today is primarily the 2 stars on the first 2 bullet points. The first item is to develop a complete system evaluation capacity and assurance plan, which considers both dry and wet weather conditions, which would fully identify any wastewater system issues for targeted correction. Various activities include flow monitoring, hydraulic modeling, reflecting actual and system conditions for both a 5-year and a 10-year design storm, assessing system capacity, and identifying inflow and infiltration for expected state and federal system compliance. The second star is to systematically assess each wastewater basin, including evaluation of all private non-plastic lateral lines, and those tasks include cleaning, video inspection, smoke testing, pipe rating, and any other inspections that might help us understand our collection system. Finally, after those 2 tasks are completed, implementation and rehabilitation of any repairs that have been identified will be needed to adequately address system deficiencies across the system. That last point, those will be projects that come out of the first 2 stars as mentioned. So on tonight's council agenda, we are recommending authorization of a contract with RJN Group in the amount of $1,616,031 to begin response actions associated with our wastewater system collection for compliance. Again, development of that citywide system evaluation plan and assessment of the Friars Creek wastewater basin. Happy to answer any questions.
Mayor and council, just to highlight a little bit more of what Nicole's saying. So the first step is a citywide plan. So this contract does a citywide plan. And then the next step is to start evaluating basin by basin. And this contract also starts with our first basin, which we're recommending as Friars Creek. You would see future programs to study the other basins as well as part of our overall plan to help reduce and ultimately eliminate sewer overflows in our system.
How long is it anticipated that this will take? Okay.
Study?
No, that the 10 years.
So
That's riding the clock.
the study itself is 12 to 18 months. The goal is to get all of the various flow monitoring equipment in place before springtime rains so that we can capture those events and begin with our modeling and determining where our issues are.
But this is an extensive undertaking, an extensive project, and our entire plan is based on a 10-year, taking this in pieces to get the entire system addressed within a 10-year period. Yes.
I thought that's what you meant. I'm glad that's what you mean. To ask a question, I hate to mention the unmentionable, but the Friars Creek Basin is what is affecting Lions Park?
So actually, Lions Park is in the Bird Creek Basin.
Okay, that was,
But it is also going to the Temple Belton plant. So if you'd like to go back to that map slide, Shannon, there's good reasons why we've identified Friars Creek first. For one, you know that Bird Creek interceptor we've been working on for a long time. So the idea in starting with the adjacent basin is to let Bird Creek finish, begin that work on Friars Creek, and then to methodically work to the west so that we're tackling each basin in a logical way. We want to address all the basins associated with Temple Belton plant first, so that as we begin to expand activities related to capital, we're doing that in the right way sequence-wise. And then to come back to the two basins on the Dozier side. Those are the older systems, and so we anticipate the cost in those basins probably to be a little bit higher toward the end of the program.
And council will recall that we have a project designed and ready to go at the appropriate time for expansion of the Temple Belton plant. However, we may be, this project ties into that in that if you start to eliminate inflow and infiltration, basically rainwater getting into your system, we may be able to push out when that plant expansion is needed. So that's why Nicole and her staff are recommending that we first focus on that basin because that's where we're having the most immediate capacity concern at our treatment plant, and we may be able to not do that project as quickly as we otherwise would have to.
Council, anything else? Okay, if being no further comments, I'll thank you, Nicole, by the way, sorry. There being no further comments, I'll entertain a motion on item 7.
motion to approve item 7 is presented by Ms. Torvala.
I'll second it.
You have a motion and a second, Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker? Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Davis?
Aye. Item 8 is to consider adopting a resolution dedicating the Animal Services Building Conference Room as the Pat O'Connor Conference Room, and also the Archive and Local History Room at the Temple Public Library as the Windland Family Archive and Local History Room in honor of R.E. Windland, Errol Windland, and Barbara Jean Windland. Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. So first, we're going to consider the Animal Services Conference Room naming. Patricia O'Connor was instrumental in establishing the Ida Olaf Foundation for Animal Care with funds from the Joan Forresdale estate. So with her support, the foundation has contributed to the Animal Services Department for over 15 years. And those funds have been used to essentially refurbish the Animal Services building as well as for veterinary care for the animals that are housed there. So the Animal Services Advisory Board did unanimously support the naming of the conference room to the Pat O'Connor Conference Room in recognition of Ms. O'Connor's generosity and dedication to animal care. The second item is the Library Archive and Local History Room. The Wendland family has been a longtime supporters of the Temple Public Library. So just to go through a few, R.E. Bob Wendland did serve on the library board for 6 years from 1959 to 1965, and he was instrumental in the 1964 transfer of the North Main Street Federal Post Office building to the city of Temple for the library use. Errol Wendland was the first president of the foundation of the Temple Public Library, and he served on the board for over 20 years. Mr. Wendland was central to the 1993 fundraising efforts for the purchase of the current library building and its remodel. He was also named Best Friend by the Friends of the Temple Library in 1995. Barbara Jean Wendland, who is, I believe, here in our audience tonight, Mrs. Wendland over there. She was also president of the Friends of the Temple Library in 1979 and was named Best Friend by the Friends in that same year of 1979. In addition to that, both Errol and Barbara Wendland contributed significantly to those 1993 library fundraising campaign, both through the Joby and Louise P. Cook Foundation. As you all know, in 2015, the City Council adopted a policy for naming city parks, facilities, and streets, and the policy states that city facilities may be named after a person who has made major contributions to Temple in either deed, voluntary service, or monetary contribution. So with both Patricia O'Connor and the Wendland family's efforts, we would like to recommend approval of these naming requests. You have any questions?
Council. Ms. Wendland, thank you for your family's long-term commitment and dedication to the city of Temple.
Thank you. We're glad to have been able to do it, and I know I speak for my husband and his father on that score too, and feel very honored by this recognition.
It's our pleasure. Thank you. Council, with that, I'll entertain a motion on items 8A and B.
Motion for approval?
Second. Have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Long?
Aye.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Davis?
Aye. Congratulations, Ms. Wendland. And item 9 is to consider adopting a resolution appointing one member to fill an unexpired term through September 1st, 2019 to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We, during workshop today, we discussed a number of names. The current person that's on that board is asked to step down, and so this is simply fulfilling an unexpired term on P&Z.
For health reasons, we didn't ask him to step down.
Correct, that's
Yeah.
true. That's true. So, council, any discussion? I need a name.
I'd like to put forth Daniel Jeans.
Okay, very good. We have a motion and a second, Madam Secretary, to appoint Mr. Jeans to the unexpired term of Mr. Crisp.
Councilmember Walker? Councilmember Long?
But I want to add that he's been on our list as an applicant to the P&Z board for some time, and we're very pleased that he's willing to still remain waiting. And so, yes, I'd like, I'm positive on him. Thank you. I can't get it out.
Me either.
Councilmember Walker?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Davis?
Aye. Thank you all for attending, and this concludes tonight's meeting of the Temple City Council.